healthy, and that God's grace is shining on you and enlightening and tapping into your wisdom of the value of a day. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about why is America so comfortable with Black suffering, right? Seems like we live in a culture today where comfort is currency. Comfort is currency. Anything that threatens my comfortability can be penalized, okay? And biblically, believers who know of God, because there's a difference between knowing about God and knowing of God, okay, are called to speak up for those who suffer injustice, right? Who are treated unfairly, poorly, and they can't speak up for themselves. Maybe they don't have the articulate courage or the abilities. Maybe they just give up. Proverbs 31:8-9, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. This is the clearest and strongest command for believers to use their voice in defense of the voiceless and to stand for justice wherever inequality exists. Isaiah 1:17, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Who's more fatherless in this system? And not only just fatherless, also has to carry the economic consequences of not being protected, not having a man in the home to guide you to navigate the complexities of a technological AI driven economy and society, on top of being marginalized. You don't look like us. You look like what they say is the threat, right? African Americans, okay? Being fatherless and white, being fatherless and European, or being fatherless and Asian, being fatherless and Hispanic are three different things, all right? You can be fatherless and white. However, that isn't the factor or variable that keeps you from opportunities, right? That isn't the straw that breaks the camel's back, okay? As long as you have the skills and you're qualified, right? You look the part, you look the role, you can come on in. Come on in, join us, right? But when you're Black and fatherless, the fatherless piece is just one side of the story. Now you're African American. You are a threat to our discomfort, all right? So when I see fatherless in the Bible, I don't think it just stands for Black Americans, but I do believe with my lived experiences, it hits the African American community harder, okay? So Isaiah 1:17, again, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Micah 6:8, he has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God? Psalm 82:3-4, defend the weak and the fatherless. You would think when you go to church today, pastors don't know a lick about these Bible verses. When I read these, I was surprised. I was like, well, damn, there's some stuff in the Bible for good old little me. Good old little oppressed people. The world just kind of doesn't bat an eye at. Well, damn, I didn't even know this. I was shocked. I was fucking shocked. Wow, there's something in the Bible that actually says speak for people who are suffering injustices, for the fatherless, for the widow. You go to church, everything is all right. Everybody's good. Everybody's happy. Everybody's singing and swinging from the chandeliers. But there are people in this world that are fucking suffering. And then you wonder why a lot of Black folks don't want to come to your congregation. Why these young Black teenagers don't want to show up. Why your communities are fractured. Who the fuck would? You're not speaking or even trying to tap into my reality. Right? And it's in the word. You mean to tell me there aren't any oppressed? Any fatherless? And they don't gotta be Black shit. When you speak to the Black oppression, When you speak to the fatherlessness of the African American community, everybody can connect to that shit. Rappers are popping right now, right? All they're doing is speaking to their pain. And look, all these fucking white people selling out tickets because they understand they can connect. So black people, their experiences are not just in a vacuum. They can connect. They can tap into other cultures. So why not tap into that currency, that electricity, right? This is important. So were there non-black people who sacrificed? Were there non-black people who stood up for blacks? Absolutely. Now, I'm not going to go into these people's background and personal history. I'm just going to list off some names. If you want to deconstruct them, because I know what type of generation I'm living in, you guys break people down tooth and nail. I'm just speaking to the fact that in reality that there were non-black people historically that fought for justice, right? John Brown led armed resistance against slavery. White activists attempted to start a revolt to free enslaved people. William Lloyd Garrison published a Liberator calling for immediate abolition, co founded the American Anti Slavery Society. Viola Liuzzo, civil rights activist murdered by the KKK after marching in Selma for voting rights. White women. Andrew Goodman worked in Mississippi Freedom Summer registering black voters, murdered by white supremacists with Cheney and Schwerner, right? So you got white people who are getting killed for standing up for us. What message do you think that sends to their grandchildren and to their children's children? This is why a lot of times these white folks don't want to talk about history because their grandparents, their great grandparents had a hand in this shit, right? And there's these younger people who observed a lot of these realities are here today. They don't want to take part in this shit. We're going to break down why. Robert F. Kennedy used federal power to protect civil rights activists, push for desegregation, voting rights, and protection from racist violence. All right. So that we have some white activists, Hispanic activists. You guys could do if you want to break these people down, look at all the faults and things that you don't like, that's your business. All right. I'm just giving credit. Cesar Chavez publicly supported civil rights movements, right? Collaborated with black leaders, spoke against anti-black racism and labor organizing. Sylvia Rivera, Afro-Latina activist who fought alongside black LGBTQ activists for civil rights, co-founded STAR, supporting homeless queer youth. Ray Reyes Lopez Tijerina, sorry if I'm butchering the name, all right, allied with black civil rights groups, protested police brutality and land discrimination affecting black and brown people. Dolores Huerta stood with black leaders against racial discrimination, advocated for multiracial labor rights and anti-police brutality practices and policies. Maria Varela worked with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Community, documented black voter suppression, and trained youth activists. We even got some Asian activists, all right? Yuri Kochiyama chose close ally of Malcolm X, advocated for black liberation, political prisoners, and anti-war coalitions supporting black communities. Grace Lee Boggs, Detroit activist, co-led Black Power initiatives, worked with black revolutionaries for economic and racial justice. Mitsui Suye Indo, her Supreme Court case ended Japanese internment, publicly aligned with black struggles against racist state control. Fred Korematsu, civil rights icon who later spoke strongly against racial profiling of black Americans and state surveillance targeting minorities. And Larry Itliong, Filipino labor leader who joined with black civil rights advocates to fight for equal labor rights and racial unity in organization. So we're going to break this down. Salute to you guys. God bless the legacy of the non-black people who have fought and who are continuing to fight, right? This isn't a one-sided conversation. Everybody can sit at the table, okay? But just wanted to kind of give credit where credit is due, that there are non-black people who are out there fighting. Ain't it weird, black folks? I'm speaking to the black people right now. Ain't it weird? Ain't it like a big difference? You can kind of tell the people who are allies with African Americans and the non-black people who aren't. They seem kind of different. It's like they all look the same, but it's just like they come with a different energy. It's really, ain't human life so interesting? Like your beliefs and how when you fight for injustice and you fight for the rights of just marginalized people, even though you might look like the dominant group, it's just something special about you. It's hard to really put my fucking finger on it. Human being is, we could be here all night talking about that, but it's just something really unique about the non-black person who understands and who fights and willing to give their fucking life for this shit, right? Because when you're talking about black people, you're gonna lose. You're gonna take some losses, right? But it's just something unique about them. It's just, I can't, you guys, yeah. So Why are some non-black people so comfortable with just blacks fucking suffering? Right? I'm out here with these white people in Orange County and Ladera Ranch. Lord knows I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife, but she got all this damn resources. So here I am. But it's a learning experience, right? What can I learn while I'm here, right? And I'm just like, damn, it seems like everything is all right. Everybody's great. I remember my white supervisor, Linda, God bless her, when I was in San Diego. She's always say, Randy, I can't live in Orange County. Those white folks out there, they just live in a bubble. They're not really connected to reality, Randy. I can't live. I was like, okay, I never been out there, so I ain't know. But I was like, oh, shit, if you saying it, and it's coming from a white women. She's like, they live in the bubble. They don't really connect to reality. What's going on? The kids pulling up in the fucking limo, taking my daughters to school. I didn't like that, Randy. That's not the real world, right? But why are some non-black people so complacent? Right? You got this guy Nick Fuentes just spitting all kind of racist shit out of his mouth. He's kind of hopping on the Trump train, right? That Donald Trump train. We say whatever the fuck we want, and we don't, we get people to protect us, and we pay for the, the gangs and stuff to protect us. We say what the fuck we want, man. Just a nasty ass generation that's developing around this whole racism conversation. America has trained an entire population to believe that if an injustice does not personally affect them, then it is optional to care about it. Racism against black people has functioned like background noise, loud enough to harm black communities, but quiet enough for non black people to tune it out when comfort, privilege, or convenience is at stake. The country was built on a moral contradiction, proclaiming freedom while normalizing slavery, racial hierarchy, and violence. This contradiction produced a psychological habit: minimize the suffering of black people to preserve the comfort of everyone else. And that habit still exists today. When injustice becomes familiar, it stops feeling like injustice to those who benefit from it. Over 400 years of slavery, segregation, and discrimination didn't just damage black communities, they conditioned the dominant society to feel morally neutral about black suffering. If oppression is baked into the culture, then the lack of empathy becomes part of the culture as well. America built entertainment, science, policing, political parties, and economic systems on this foundation. To this day, most Americans were never taught to see Black pain as an emergency. Instead, they were taught that racism is history, it's overblown, or an exaggeration, allowing them to walk away from conversation or activists without any moral cost. This is how indifference becomes socially acceptable. The absence of federal level Black specific hate crime protections paired with inconsistent state laws signals to society that harm against Black people is not urgent enough for targeted policy. Despite Black Americans being the most frequent victims of hate crimes in the United States, this legal gap reinforces a dangerous psychological message. Black lives don't require special protection. And when a group is left unprotected by law, culture takes that as permission to treat them as fair game. It becomes easy for non Black people to ignore discrimination because the system itself acts as if Black people are supposed to endure more, tolerate more, and recover from more without institutional support. Meanwhile, many non Black people participate in or remain silent about anti Black narratives to maintain their own social position. In a society where proximity to whiteness increases economic and political access, aligning with anti Black sentiment becomes a survival strategy, a career tactic, or a way to fit into the dominant groups. This is how sick, this is how sick and regressed humanity has become in the world of American society in our racial history, that it has become so normalized and so accepted and agreed upon in the dominant community that being anti Black provides you with benefits, resources, political access, right? When you're living in a world where discrimination becomes currency, that's a fucking problem. All right. That's a problem. And this conversation is important to have. Why? I grew up in a household where racism and discrimination against African Americans was not discussed. These conversations were not had. My grandmother, she could pass for a white woman. All right. So she more aligned with white society. Okay. So from her experiences, and I'm not saying light skinned women, didn't get bullied, right? Because there was a black and white, dark skin, light skin dynamic, but she was bullied by a lot of African Americans who were darker than her. So her opinion, kind of tilted towards aligning with the European side of the house, right? Because she could more connect with their experiences. So I didn't grow up in an environment where these communications around racism and discrimination against black people, just who you are in this society, was had, right? And that drastically impacted me, drastically impacted me not getting this knowledge growing up. And I'm not saying everything is on my grandmother, right? You need your fucking parents, right? So I'm not blaming her, but I'm just saying the realities of this. So as I got older, not having this education and this knowledge around my racial history, when you experience discrimination and you experience, different groups, and I'm not saying black people are innocent, but in terms of the black and white conversation, when you experience racism firsthand, it hits you harder, right? Because you're like, what is this shit about? Right? Because you didn't really get the knowledge. Now you're thrown into it, and it just makes you feel worse, right? So I had to deal with a lot of racial trauma, not only in the military, in the community, where I had white people pulling knives on me, just sitting in fucking traffic for nothing, you know? And to this day, man, I just avoid certain situations. I avoid certain opportunities. I just avoid the shit, right? I don't have anybody protecting me. I don't got nobody fucking investing in me, or I ain't got no security, And if I get locked up, I'm going upside a motherfucker head. My kids don't eat, right? So I have to, it's not being a bitch. It's just like I got to think beyond me, right? So I just avoid shit, right? And these conversations are so important to have because we're going to be dead and gone. I'll be 40 next year, right? And these younger people are paying attention to what is going on. They're paying attention to what is not being said, right? They're reading the writings on the wall. Oh, this is how you treat niggas. Oh, this is how you treat white people. Oh, this is how you treat these niggas. This is how you just don't even pay attention to that shit. Oh, okay. And these legacies keeps it's generational. It keeps going on and on and on and on. 15 points, why many non-black people are complicit with racism. One, if it doesn't hurt them, it doesn't move them. People move towards pain when it's personal. They move away from it when it's someone else's. Because non black people do not experience racism's daily sting, housing discrimination, workplace bias, profiling, surveillance, they often underestimate its weight. The system allows them to treat racism like a topic rather than a trauma, an issue rather than an emergency. The convenience of detachment becomes a habit. It is psychologically easier to believe racism is exaggerated than to admit society unfairly advantages you. Comfort becomes complicitly. So, this is why you got a lot of foreigners and immigrants who, of course, are non black. They come in, they pay attention to what's going on, they study this shit, right? These foreigners and immigrants that are coming over here, they're not fucking blind to American politics, social norms. They know what the fuck is going on. And they come in and they squeeze right into these narratives, right? Oh man, I could be ignorant to racism. I can be ignorant to discrimination against black folks, and I can win. I can, fuck yeah, let me come on in here. Let me come in and get in. Let me get in. Right? These motherfuckers ain't hopping the fence to come fight for no damn black people. Right? They're like, shit, I'm trying to come in and get mine. I can come in and be ignorant. Free ignorance. Hey guys, you ain't gotta fight for these niggas. You can come in, actually you can benefit. Going to get some of these niggas, right? Let's open up some of these stores in these black communities. Let's open up, it just opens up the fucking floodgates for ignorance, right? So, two, racism against black people is normalized, right? Through 400 years of repetition. Racism is not merely an event, it is a cultural rhythm. For centuries, anti black discrimination was legal, encouraged, and celebrated. When a society repeats a behavior long enough, it becomes emotionally invisible, even when morally outrageous. Non black people inherit a system in which anti blackness is the default posture. Because anti black narratives are woven into media, history books, policing norms, and national mythology, many non black people unconsciously absorb them without questioning their origin. Three, black people lack strong federal hate crime protections. When the law does not take a group's danger seriously, society follows its lead. The uneven patchwork of hate crime protections for black Americans send a cultural message that black targeted violence is regrettable but not urgent. Legally, structurally, symbolically, America signals lower priority. Non black communities internalize this. If the system doesn't protect them, why should I worry about it? Legal neglect produces moral neglect. Four, social reward for distancing oneself from blackness. In America, aligning with anti black narratives often grants proximity to power. Careers, politics, and social networks reward those who appear safe, non controversial, or aligned with dominant interests. This pressure impacts immigrants, minorities, and non black groups who adopt anti black attitudes to avoid discrimination themselves. Anti blackness becomes a ladder. Climate and society will offer you acceptance. Five, psychological avoidance of guilt and responsibility. Admitting racism exists means admitting complicity. To protect self image, many non black people choose denial, minimization, or silence. Cognitive dissonance makes people defend their innocence instead of defending black dignity. By denying the reality of racism, they deny the responsibility to address it. Six, political systems incentivize anti black narratives. Political parties often mobilize voters using fear, stereotypes, or coded language around crime, welfare, or urban communities. These messages justify discriminatory policies while making non black people feel morally justified in supporting them. When politics rewards anti black sentiment, silence becomes a political position. Seven, economic structures benefit from black disadvantage. Inequity fuels profit. Cheap labor, underfunded communities, prison labor, and economic disparities all benefit powerful groups. If equality truly arrived, the economic hierarchy would collapse. Many non black people oppose systemic change not because they hate black people, but because they benefit from the imbalance. Maintaining advantage becomes important than dismantling injustice. Eight, fear of losing privilege masquerading as neutrality. Many non black people stay silent not because they are neutral, but because they fear that racial equity will require uncomfortable redistribution of power, prestige, safety, or opportunity. Neutrality becomes camouflage for protecting the status quo. What they call neutrality is actually self preservation. Nine, media narratives reinforce anti black bias. For decades, news and entertainment industries portrayed black communities through lenses of danger, dysfunction, or deviance. These narratives shape the subconscious of non black viewers, creating fear or superiority without them realizing it. When a society is fed one story about a group, believing it becomes effortless. 10, cultural conditioning to view Black anger as a threat. Non Black people often misinterpret Black expression, anger, grief, frustration as aggression. This bias encourages avoidance, policing, or invalidation instead of empathy. The emotional experiences of Black people are pathologized, dismissed, or criminalized. Dehumanization turns legitimate pain into something others feel justified ignoring. Systemic myths of mediocrity. Many non black individuals believe that success is purely earned. Acknowledging systemic racism challenges that myth. It forces them to question the source of their advantages. To preserve the illusion of fairness, they choose to downplay systemic discrimination. This is a great point. If I admit as a non black person I have tremendous amounts of success that racism exists, that means the integrity of my achievements and the effort that I put into my achievements may be sort of like a bystander or a inconsequential effect of privilege, right? And that diminishes sort of like my pride, right? And all the success that I've earned, right? I didn't earn this because of you niggas being discriminated against. I earned this because I worked hard for it. You need to work hard for it too. Protecting the myth becomes more comfortable than confronting the truth. 12. Social pressures to align with dominant groups. People fear being ostracized, right? People don't want to be left out. They don't want to be put out. White people are really good at making you feel like a fucking outsider. White folks, Hispanics, even Asians, right? I feel like black people are one of the only groups that they just welcome every fucking body, right? You got fucking Chinese people in the black community. You got a damn Mexican town in Detroit. You got black people just accept everybody. But these whites, Asians, and Hispanics, they'll make your ass feel like an outsider if you don't align with their views. There will. I've experienced this shit even in the workplace. All right. So people fear that. Damn, if I side with these niggas, I'm gonna be exited out the group. I'm not gonna be a part of the group, man. I need to fit in. I want to belong, man. They got the fucking potlucks on Fridays. They coming with lumpia, all kind of shit, you know. So people feel being ostracized. Speaking against racism risk backlash, discomfort, or conflict. Silence becomes the easier social choice, right? Many non-black people learn early. Go along to get along. Keep your mouth shut, man. This conditioning prevents them from standing up even when they recognize injustice. Loyalty to the group becomes stronger than loyalty to morality. 13, racism is treated as a black problem, not an American problem. Schools, churches, and workplace often frame racism as something black people must fix through respectability, forgiveness, or resilience, while non black people are merely observers. This framing allows them to walk away without any cost. If the burden is not shared, injustice is guaranteed to continue. A couple more: anti Blackness strengthens group identity for non black communities. Some communities bond through opposition. We're not like them. Anti Blackness becomes a shared belief that reinforces unity, tradition, or cultural narratives, right? This can show up in immigrant communities, ethnic groups, and even marginalized populations. So now we're at the stage where anti Blackness is almost like a glue that keeps a lot of these non Black, ethnic, marginalized groups to us stronger. We're not like them niggas. We're not like them. Hey guys, let's band together for Thanksgiving and thank the Lord above that we're not like these niggas. You know, we ain't like them. They're violent. They're animals. Look at them. Look at them. Right? It's so easy to blanket statement, right? All black people, and that interpretation becomes the fabric that holds a lot of these communities together in America. Believe that. So it says targeting blackness becomes a shortcut to belonging, right? And last but not least, American culture trains people to see racism as optional. Because racism was embedded in the founding of this nation, America never taught its citizens that fighting racism is a moral obligation. Instead, it was treated as a personal hobby or a political stance or a charitable interest, never a duty. This mindset persists. Non black people feel that they have the choice to care or not, right? As long as empathy is optional, injustice becomes permanent. So it starts from the top down, right? If the government, right, is not making it a duty to stand up against racism, if the government isn't implementing anti-hate laws for the black community, and most of these non-black groups, they over submit to the government. Who do you think most of the time are lined up at these voting booths? These fucking white folks, these Asians, these non-black groups. They vote before they fucking eat cereal in the morning, right? And black people vote too, right? But that's not my fucking point. Non-black people, they are submissive to the United States government. You better believe that. All right. And if the United States government is like, hey, don't worry about them niggas, right? They're, it's an afterthought. They're going to follow suit. All right. So it starts from the top down, but it also starts with us. Okay. Because we are the product of the top, right? Without us, there will be no government. All right. So this is going to be a part of my African American series and really American series. But these conversations are important to have. And I know you guys are like, oh, here we go with the black conversation again. This shit probably gonna get any views. It's not gonna go viral. You guys ain't trying to hear this shit. But I'm gonna talk about the shit anyway because I don't give a fuck really about what you guys think. It's about spreading the message and spreading the truth, stand on God's word. Because at the end of the day, God is gonna judge me, and I care about what did you do. What did you do, Randy? You saw this injustice. You saw this hurt. You saw this oppression. So what did you do? You got a master's degree. You're out here doing counseling work. You're helping everybody else, culture. You're saving everybody else. What did you do for my people? Right? Because the spirit of God is in these black folks too. All right. So I pray that you guys, that this message reaches who is meant to reach, and that you gain something from this, and that God will put the spirit of courage in you to stand up for your community, stand up for your people. All right. The black racism, if racism against black folks is not just a black issue, it's a humanitarian issue. All right. You guys have a blessed day. I'm out.